Welcome to Digital Units, the channel for developers by a developer. So what we'll go over in this video is a quick introduction to the channel, the mission and the vision for this channel, a little bit of the tooling setup that I've got here, the environment setup, first app, and that'll be it for this video. So this channel is the beginning idea for it is that I'd like to teach what it means to build Angular 2 applications. Yes, specifically Angular 2. I know Angular 1's a great product, but Angular 2 is even better, and the release candidate just came out this week. Speaking of which, I just got back from NGConf, which is pretty cool. Quite an amazing conference, the best one I've ever been to, personally. And as you can see, I'm starting here from my lovely office in just North Salt Lake. There's my Scrum board back here. You can see it's quite empty, and some Docker items at the top. I went to a Docker conference just a year ago. But back to this channel. The mission for this channel is to provide usable, understandable, entertaining, high-quality instructional content on front-end web technologies to viewers and subscribers. And the vision for this channel is to increase the numbers of articulate, knowledgeable, capable individuals who seek to develop or aid the development of modern software, which could describe quite a few of you watching now. Even if you've only submitted a review online, you really are aiding in the development of modern software. All feedback is appreciated. So the next thing, let's get on to tooling. As you can see here, I've got Photo Booth open, and really this isn't even my main monitor. My main monitor is right here, and my Mac monitor is right there. This is a really nice 4K setup over here. I've got a triple monitor setup with my Mac monitor here. Right here is my 4K, and right there is my other, well, almost 4K. So what you'll see, let's size this down here so we can focus on the tools. You'll see up here I've got Spectacle, which is an excellent utility. I'll bring Sublime over here. So you'll see with just simple key shortcuts, I can go to the left, to the right, top and the bottom, and you can do resizing. You can do corners, which is really cool. I really like this tool quite a bit. It helps when you want to split up your screen. And then also I use Alfred, which Alfred is sort of a replacement for the Spotlight search. And Alfred is even better. Spotlight's great, but Alfred, there's this shortcut key. It's just a lot better as far as its IntelliSense and figuring out what you want to find. So let's say I wanted to search for open daily coding goal. So there's a document that I use for my daily coding goal. A lot of other really cool features. It just seems faster and more accurate overall than Spectacle. So we could say why Alfred is better than Spectacle. Well, we won't get too far into that today. But as you can see, there are plenty of people who have plenty of opinions. So with that, the next thing I use is iTerm. And why do I use it? It's a replacement for the Mac OS X terminal. It's better theming capabilities. They're both pretty capable. I just like iTerm better. And then I also use Sublime Text. As you can see right here, I really like Sublime Text. I really like the ability to do this right here, plus and minus the text size. It's really great for presenting, and let's say it's the end of the day and your eyes are a little bit strained, you can use it. And also WebStorm. WebStorm is my favorite JavaScript IDE editor. And we'll be using it later as we create our first app. So with that, the environment, in order to set up your environment, you're going to need to install Node. So you can go to this URL and figure out how to install it, or if you have Homebrew installed, which Homebrew is a great package manager I recommend if you're using a Mac, just do brew install Node. And after that, you may need to open up a new command console so the command is available, or it might be available. And after you've got Node installed, which if you're on Windows, go ahead and use something like Git Bash or Bash for Windows or Cygwin, and then you should be able to have a similar experience to what we'll be having here on Mac. Once you've got NPM installed, install Angular CLI globally, which what is Angular CLI? It's the command line interface utility for interacting, well, not quite interacting, for creating Angular applications. And as you'll see, it's a quite capable tool. So run an npm install -g to to install globally, and then Angular client to install the Angular client package. So I've already done that. And the next thing we'll do is we'll make our first application. So what you'll do, the very first thing, we will get into these other packages later, in our first app. So first of all, I'm going to change change to your home directory with cd tilde, and I already made the Angular app. So go ahead and say make directory Angular apps. I already made it, so I'm actually going to remove mine from scratch. So we'll start from scratch. So rm-rf, scary command, Angular dash, if I can type. There we go, starting from scratch. There are already quite a few files in there because I've done this before, so usually rm-rf actually goes pretty quickly. Hopefully, well, there we go. So we'll make a directory, Angular apps, and on Windows it's a similar command. Change it into there, cd Angular apps, and what we'll do is now that we have, so go ahead and do ng-help to verify that you've got the Angular CLI installed. There we go. You can browse through here to see all the different commands you can offer, or go to the docs. So the next thing we'll do is make the first application. So with the command line interface, go ahead and do ng, which invokes the command line interface, new for the command, and then type in my first app. This will generate a new application. And it may take quite some time because it'll be installing all of the node dependencies. As you can see, so let's full screen this. It says something about Watchman, then it's installing all of these dependencies, and you can see it's pulling down these packages for tooling via the Node Package Manager. So this will take just a second. We'll be right back. Okay, we're back. So as you can see, take a look at what was done here. Of course, you've got this basic templating, and then installing all the packages for tooling. So you've got your ES6 shim, the Protractor for testing, Jasmine for testing, and Selenium for WebDriver testing for your end-to-end tests. And we'll get right into it. So now that you've created this app, you can run it, and we'll do that now with ng-serve. So ng-serve starts it on, as you'll see, port 4200. Oh, and great. This could be your first bug as well. Make sure and change into the directory. So cd into my first app, and from within that directory, as you can see, I've got my shell configured here to show if it's a Git repository. You can see that it's a Git repository on branch master. So with that, you can see my lovely face better now. Do ng-serve. And you'll see, oh, I did ng-server. Let's Control-C out of that, ng-serve. There we go. It'll start up the application on port 42000. There we go, starting up. Great, see, it's running on localhost port 4200. Okay, continuing, build, so it does a build, and it serves on localhost 42000. So let's pull up Chrome. And what did I do there? I just did Command Space to pull up Alfred, typing in Chrome. And now we'll pull up a new window, a new incognito window. Make sure I don't have any leftover sessions. And we'll go to localhost 4200. Loading, and there we are. First app works. So now let's dig into this a little bit deeper. What does this actually create for you? So we'll start this with WebStorm. Pick any favorite IDE you have, even text editor. Sublime's great. I have a particular liking for WebStorm, so we're going to do WebStorm today. So let's do WebStorm. As you can see, I love those keyboard shortcuts. So there we go. We're going to do my first app, and really I've done this before, so it's already there. You could click open if you wanted to do it for the first time in WebStorm. And WebStorm, there's a free version and a community version. They're both great. We'll go ahead and add the VCS root so we can get the advanced version control capabilities. I say advanced, they're really basic. So let's look inside of this My First App directory and see what we're given. And as you can see, this indexing could take a little while, especially depending on the speed of your computer. Angular, or not Angular, WebStorm gives you amazing IntelliSense, and part of what's required to do that is this indexing step that's currently happening. So let's see what we can do while that indexing is happening. So the first thing you see, there's this config folder, and inside that config folder, you have the different environments, and you can have, so they're exported as constants, you can see, and you can add the different constants you need for each environment, which is great so that you don't end up changing things for every environment you deploy to, which you can even go a step beyond this in your build process to just add things into a config file. We'll get into that in a later video. Then you have your distribution folder, which this is what you send to your, this is what you deploy to your website, send to your VM or to your container, whatever you deploy to. And this is built by a command we'll see later. So this E2E folder has all of your end-to-end tests and your configurations for them. Your node modules folder, that's where all of your dependencies are deployed or downloaded to. And any dependencies you need for your application are actually copied into the dist vendor folder when you run the proper build command, as we'll see later. And in the public folder, you're just the npm ignore, and the source folder is where your application source code goes. And you can see the basic structure of this template application. You've got a shared folder with shared items and your first app component here and your index.ts, as well as your index.html. And if you take a quick look here, you'll see the basic meta tags and title. And then you'll see this system.import. This is using system.js as well as a lot of these other scripts that are required for Angular to be able to work, and some shims. And you can see this directive here that until Angular is loaded, this says loading. This is so there's something for your users to see while your app is loading. And after Angular is loaded and your application is loaded, this will then be recognized as a directive and be replaced with the content from your application component, from your main application component here in the app folder. Right there. So if we go into the app component in HTML, you'll see there's your title, and your title is coming from a property on your model for this component, your my first app component. And there we see the template URL is myfirstapp.component.html. So beyond this, of course, we have some other. We've got the system.js configuration, the TypeScript config, the typings configuration, and your main TypeScript file, which includes your bootstrapping of your entire application. And of course, your favicon for a great icon to show when your application is first loaded up. So then there's this TMP directory that just has a bunch of temp files, and this is in the git ignore, as you can see. You can just delete this if you don't like it there. This, as you see, it's ignored, so you don't have to worry about it getting committed to your Git repository. And then further down here, you see there's the Angular CLI JSON build for configuration of the CLI tool. And there's this package.json, which, if you haven't used this before, this pretty much describes the dependencies of your application, and also dependencies of your build system, which would be your dev dependencies, because generally you don't have your build system in production, and other scripts you might run with NPM, and the name, version, and license, and other properties. And the TSLint is configuration that's used in this build system to help ensure that it catches errors and problems in your code, or at least potential problems. And the typings, oh, I didn't mention this typings directory. This is where the typing files are located that your IntelliSense for WebStorm, if you use an editor like Visual Studio Code or WebStorm, they give you great IntelliSense, and part of what is required for IntelliSense and type configuration to be able to be recognized by your IntelliSense are these type configuration files, like they reference different type configurations or typings files, and that's all loaded into your and indexed in your editor. So that's a quick overview. So let's actually build. So let's say you want to create a new distribution. That's a simple command, and what am I doing here? I'm actually hitting command twice to bring up the terminal. You can also do this by clicking this icon and clicking the terminal. We'll run the commands. We could run the commands from here. We've already got the terminal how we like it outside of here, so let's go back to that. So we'll open up another command window so that we can leave that running for the end-to-end test later. And actually, for now, we'll stop it with Control-C. So let's go to the other window. We'll change directory back into our Angular apps, my first app, and then from my first app, let's plus this up here so it's easy to see. We'll do ng build. And ng build will take all of your source code from this source directory and all of your node modules as configured in the build system here and make a new distribution folder. See, there we go, built project successfully, stored in dist. And the next thing we'll do is run the tests. And tests are great. Hopefully you've used tests in your application and you know how valuable they are. If you haven't, that's a subject for another time, but do tests. It will save you time. So if you want to check the status of your tests, run ng test. We'll hit Command K here to clear out the console. Ng test will take all of your tests, which are also set up by default. And it's, of course, building a project first and then running the test. And as you can see in the background, it launches the browser and runs the tests in the browser. And the tests were executed. Both of them are successful. To stop this, we'll hit Control-C. And now, let's run the end-to-end tests. So, in order to run the end-to-end tests, you'll find if you run them, so ng e2e, you'll find that if you run them, they'll fail unless you already have the local server up and running. So you'll see this will fail in just a second here. Starting things up. Sometimes it takes a little while, and this could be different based off of the speed of your system. So as you can see in the background, it attempted to run the end-to-end tests, which did not work, because in order for it to work, we already have to have something running on port 4200. So there we go, it failed. We'll go to the other window that we have and do ng serve, which will start our application on port 4200. And as soon as that starts up and finishes starting up, we'll go back over to our end-to-end tests and run them again. And this time they will succeed. So here we are, starting the tests, finding out that things do in fact run. There we go, and all tests pass. Great, so we have finished this first application. And what have we done? We found out that we can use the CLI to generate an application. We can serve it up on port 4200 with ng serve. We can build a new version of the distributable in the dist folder that you deploy with ng build. You can run your tests with ng test, and you can run your end-to-end tests with ng e2e. So let's close this out. This is our first application. It's very basic, nothing added other than the basic application template. This video will be referred to by other videos as necessary for the initial configuration and setup of your applications. So thanks for watching, and hopefully as we move further along, things will get more complicated and more complex. The idea is to build one application a day for 42 days, and we'll see how far we get by the end of it. This is not day 1, this is actually day 0, and this video is really just a setup and the configuration of the initial application so that we have a starting point, a point of reference, and a foundation for the rest of the 42 days. With that in mind, it's been my pleasure, and I will see you next time.